Before we perform a bank reconciliation, let's review why we do it. The reason we perform monthly reconciliations is to ensure our accounting records match either the bank statement's data or the credit card statement. Very often, the bank and credit card statements will have data we did not know about, such as monthly service charges, interest deposits, checks from our customers that bounced, which means they were non-sufficient fund accounts, also called NSF, collections from our customers that were paid directly to the bank, and automatic monthly deductions to pay bills such as insurance, the phone bill, etc. Any transactions that appear in the bank statement or the credit card statement that are not in our accounting records must be entered into our accounting records, which in this case is QuickBooks. So how do we know when to reconcile a bank account or a credit card account? Most businesses do the reconciliation when they get the bank statement or a credit card statement, which of course is monthly. But if your account has lots of automatic deductions, it may be a good idea to do it more frequently, such as every 2 or 3 days or even every day. This will help prevent you from having a negative balance in your checking account. You may then be asking, how would you reconcile an account without a bank statement? Well, you would just log into the account online, compare your transactions to the bank or to the credit card account, and enter any new transactions into QuickBooks that you're not aware of. So let me switch over to the assignment. So notice the assignment says the following bank statement arrives for the cash operating account. So here's a bank statement. So it's the cash operating account that we're going to do the reconciliation for. So let me switch back to QuickBooks. And before we start our bank reconciliation, let's open the Open Windows list and the home page. I always like to maximize my home page. So to start the bank reconciliation, there's 2 ways to start it. You could go to Banking, Reconcile, or if you like using the home page like me, you go to the Banking section and notice there's a Reconcile. So this opens up the Begin Reconciliation window. So the first thing it's asking, well, which account do we want to reconcile? Of course, there's lots of different accounts we could reconcile, so we need to make sure this says cash operating. The second one says the statement date. So notice down here, the date of the statement is April 30th, 2017. I've already got that in there. Change yours if it doesn't say that. Beginning balance matches the beginning balance on the statement. That means the beginning of the month. And now it's asking us to insert the ending balance of the bank statement. And over here it says the ending balance is 43,120.78. 43,120.78. I'm going to tab down to service charge. Now, if there's a service charge, we can enter it here, and QuickBooks behind the scenes would enter it into the register for us. However, if we wanted to, or if we had previously already entered it in the register, you would not enter it here, but you could go to the register and enter the bank service charge and the interest earned into the check register. But this is the convenient way to enter it. So let's see if we have a service charge. Notice here it says service charges are $10, and notice down here it says the service charge happened on April 30th, and it's $10. So I'm going to put $10 here. I'm going to make sure this date matches the date of 04/30/17. I'm going to tab. Now this account is required. So it's asking us, well, how do we classify this $10? So let's open up our chart of accounts here. And remember we entered or we created an account called Bank Service Charge. So let's use that one. Notice it's an expense. So behind the scenes, QuickBooks will use this as the debit account, and it will credit or lower our checking account. Next, it's asking us, do we have interest earned? So let's go down here to see if we have any interest earned. And right here, it says we have $1.09, so 1.09. When did it happen? April 30th, 04/30/17. And then it's asking us, how are we going to classify that? So we're going to open this up, and we're going to use that interest income account that we created earlier. Notice it's an other income, which just means that it's considered minor, so it will appear at the bottom of our profit and loss. So let's use that. And remember, income is what QuickBooks calls revenue. So the company could have chosen to call this interest revenue. So everything looks good. Now, one thing, some companies, like my personal business, I don't have a service charge, so I don't enter anything here. And a lot of checking accounts don't earn any interest, so you wouldn't enter in anything here. So if you ever have a 0 or leave this blank, then this date is not used. This date is only used if you have an amount in here and an amount in here. So if these are blank, you don't have to worry about the dates. The reason I say that is so many students worry about getting the proper date here when there's a 0 over here. So again, if there's a 0 over here or here, then these dates are not used because no journal entry is created behind the scenes. Now we can click Continue. So up here is our reconciliation window. Notice it's split into two parts. We've got checks and payments. So these are deductions, and we've got deposits and other credits. So things that make our account go up are over here. Things that make our account go down are over here. Now remember, the generic instructions to do a reconciliation is you're going to compare your records right here with the statement either from the bank or from the credit card, and anything that that's on the statement that we did not know about, we would enter into our accounting records. So the most critical step for, well, one of the most critical steps for doing a bank reconciliation is you need to start at the top. Always start at the top and just work your way down one transaction at a time. So our first transaction is this deposit on February 28th for $5,700. So we go up here to the deposit section and look, do we have a deposit for $5,700? We do. So we need to check this off. So how do we check off this line? You single click it. So I'm going to single click that. Now if I was doing this in the real world, I would also put a little check mark here on my paper statement to let me know that I've checked this off. It's a good idea to keep track of what you've checked. But I can't do that since it's on my computer screen, so I'm going to put a little box around here, which means I've checked this off. Then we just work our way down to the next transaction. Next one is a deposit for $6940.38, and we do have a deposit for that amount up here. So I'm going to single click on this line to check it off. Notice we got both of the deposits checked off. And then we've got an interest deposit for $1.09. So remember that interest deposit we just entered? It's showing up right here. So yes, it is entered. Now if you ever entered any of the interest earned or service charge incorrectly, you can go back and change it by clicking on this modify box. So I'm going to click on the modify box and notice that same window popped open. So if we got the ending balance wrong, or the service charge wrong, or the dates wrong, or the accounts wrong, you go back here and change it. So yes, this $1.09 does appear here, and as you can see here, so I can put my box around here, meaning that it is in QuickBooks. Next, we go down here to our service charge. This $10 service charge is in QuickBooks. It's right here. So we can put a box around here, meaning it is in QuickBooks. Then we go down here to the next transaction. Notice we're in checks, so these are deductions. So we got check 10 for $1,500. Here's the check number column. Here's check 10 for $1,500. So single click this line to show that it is on our statement, and then we're going to put a box around 10 to let us know that we've checked that off. Working our way down, we got check 11 for $385. Right up here, we've got check 11 for $385. So we're going to single click this line to check it off, and then there's no more checks. Now at this point, some students will say, well, wait, what about check 12? Don't we check this off? No. If something is not on the statement, do not check it off here. So why would this check 12 not be in our statement? Well, the first thing I always look at is what's the date for this transaction? So check 12 was written on at the end of April. When is the bank statement? April 30th. So on April 30th, we wrote a check to Williams Office Supply, and it's going to take a while for them to deposit into their bank, and it's going to take a while for their bank to notify this bank that it happened. So it takes a while for it to show up on our bank statement. So because this check 12 was written towards the end of the month, it's not been cashed yet, so it will probably show up on the next bank statement. But because it's not on this bank statement, leave it unchecked. Next, we work our way down. We've got more deductions. We've got a transfer for $7,500 at the beginning of April. And I do see that up here, $7,500. So I'm going to check that off by single clicking it. And then I'll put a box around here to let us know we've checked that off. Next, we got Twin City Telco, about the middle of April for 75.69. So I look up here. Do I have a deduction for 75.69? No. Why not? Why does the bank know about this transaction, but we've not entered it? So I'm going to go back to the instructions and notice it says, the owner of the business informs you that the company has some expenses, such as the telephone expense. So notice telco, that's short for a telephone company. So this is our telephone bill. So the company has some expenses, such as the telephone expense, automatically deducted from the checking account. The transactions for these expenses are entered into the accounting records when the bank statement arrives. So I'm going to switch back to QuickBooks. And so what this means is, because this Twin City Telco transaction has occurred in our bank account, we need to enter it up here. So how do we put it in our accounting records? Well, we could go to the check window separately from this. I could go home. I could enter or write a check and get rid of the 13 because it really wasn't check 13. Put like NSF or non-sufficient, put EFT for electronic funds transfer. So that's one way to do it, but I'm not going to do that because there's a more convenient way. So let me go back to the Reconcile window. So QuickBooks knows that we're going to have to go to the check register quite often to enter transactions. So they give us a shortcut. I'm going to right click anywhere in this window. Notice I can right click anywhere in this window and then go down to Use Register. So I'm going to click on Use Register and it takes us to the check register for cash operating. And now I can just simply enter the Twin City Telco bill on April 12th. So 04/12/17 tab. Now what QuickBooks does in the number column is it assumes it's a check. So it's going to go to the next check. The last check was check 12, so it's going to assume this is check 13, but it's not a check. Notice this is not, there's no check number associated with it. If it did, it would appear up here. So I'm going to get rid of the 13 and instead type EFT, Electronic Funds Transfer. That just means it was automatically deducted from our account. I'm going to tab to the payee, which is Twin City. Tab to the payment, 75.69. Tab to the account. And I'm going to type in, let's see if they have a telephone expense. They do. So I'm going to use telephone expense. This 666 number pops in there automatically because that's the account number that we have with Twin City Telco. So it just automatically puts that in there for us. So just leave it there. And then I click record. So now that transaction, as you can see, is up here. I put it in chronological order. But the critical step is we need to go back to the reconciliation window. So click on Reconcile over here, which is why I use the Open Windows list. I need to find that 75.69 and check it off. Here it is. So I'm going to single click that, check it off, and then I'm going to put a little box around here, which means I've checked it off here. And then, oh, by the way, notice down here there's a difference. So this means we have a difference between what the bank is showing and what we have said should be on there of $150. When we're all done reconciling, we can click Reconcile now, but never, ever, ever reconcile if this difference is not zero. This difference has to be zero. Otherwise, you're going to screw up your reconciliation. So we're going to go back down to our statement. The last thing we've not checked off is we've got a Jeter Janitorial Services for, look at that, $150. So notice it's not up here. So we need to enter a transaction for Jeter Janitorials. So I could click Use Register. If you wanted to go the long way, you could go to Home. Notice over here is Check Register. Click on Check Register. It's asking us which register. Click OK. And notice it opens up the check register for cash operating. So now I just need to enter this last transaction. Jeter Janitorial 0426, 042617. tab. It's not check 13, it's an EFT, electronic funds transfer. Tab to the payee, that's Jeter janitorial. Tab to the payment, 150. Tab to the account, let's see if they have a janitorial. Yes, they do. Now, of course, you could just click here and find the account there, but I just like to type in the name of the account. I just type a J and it popped right to it. And tab to this field. Remember, this field is just the account number for Jeter janitorial, so just leave it there. We click record, and then we go back to the reconcile window. We have to check off that 150. Here it is, so check this off. And then I'm going to put a box around here, meaning that's checked off. So I've got everything checked off down here. And look at our difference. Our difference is now 0. So because I've checked off everything here, and everything that's down here has been checked off up here, I can now click Reconcile Now since the difference is 0. So click Reconcile Now, and this little window pops up. It's asking you if you want to do a report. I don't want to do a report now. I don't want to look at it. You could if you wanted to, but I'm going to click Close. We can always pull that report up later. So now at first the reconciliation may seem complicated, but once you practice it several times, it gets much easier. Eventually it becomes second nature. So that's how you do a reconciliation. So remember, in a reconciliation, all you're doing is you're comparing your statement with the transactions in your records, and anything that you do not have in your records, you enter into your records. Because there's a lot of things like interest deposits and service charges and automatic deductions that you do not know about until you get your bank statement or until you log into your bank account and check out what's going on.